All right, and we'll get going. Good afternoon, everyone. As I said, my name is Rob Polasic. I'm the training director for Literacy Minnesota, and I'm joined by my colleague, Danny Brown, who does many things, including doing Northstar support. So if you want to just say hi, Danny, see who you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danny. I'm happy to be joining you today. Thanks.
All right. So today we are going to do an overview of Northstar Digital Literacy, which we're calling Getting Started with Northstar. So it'll be an overview of the Northstar product, and then we will dig into a lot of the features, kind of the most common things that teachers and tutors and staff people interact with. So our agenda for this afternoon is, as I said, we'll do an overview of the features. We'll talk about how to create learner accounts so they can get them into the learner management system. Danny will talk about how to get learners logged on and how to do assessments and proctored assessments. I'll talk about the various reports that you can run, look at the instructional resources that we provide, both the teacher-led curriculum and the self-directed online learning. And then we'll end by talking about the resources and documentation that Northstar provides to you as users. Okay. We have a lot of people on the call. It looks like about 150 at this point. So we're going to ask you to hold off on questions until we will pause and ask for questions. That way the chat box doesn't get out of control. And then we will end at 3:30 Minnesota time. And at that point, Danny and I will hang around. So if you have specific questions about your site, we'll be more than happy to hang around and answer those for you. So we want to be interactive, but with 160 people, we want to keep the chat from blowing up. So a little bit about my organization, Literacy Minnesota. We are a nonprofit located, as you might guess, in Minnesota. And we really work on 3 levels. We have direct service sites where we provide literacy instruction, English language instruction, citizenship, GED, and other high school equivalency instruction, and then digital literacy instruction. So we do a lot of on-the-ground work with teaching. We also work on a statewide level, providing trainings to volunteers and teachers who are working in adult education. And then we work on the national level by doing trainings, by doing Northstar stuff, advocacy work, and so forth. So we really work on a variety of different levels. And today we'll be talking about our national product, Northstar, but we'll really be talking about our on-the-ground experiences. Both Danny and I have done a lot of work with the Northstar system, and so we'll be sharing some of our insights and encouraging you to share yours as well. I also want to start these things out with a little bit of a disclaimer. And the first is that Northstar is constantly evolving. It is really cool. Every week they add something new, they tweak something based on requests from the field. And so Northstar is constantly evolving. And there's a pretty good chance that when we log into the site today, I'm going to go, oh, that looks different than yesterday, because it's changing. And Northstar does a pretty good job of letting people know when the changes are, especially those big ones. But it's just really neat to see an organic system that's constantly evolving to meet the needs of the field. And part of that because the technology that Northstar covers is constantly changing. You think about how many updates Windows has had in the last 10 years and all of the updated demands of email and things like that. So Northstar is changing to keep up with the content that's changing. Software isn't linear, and I tend to think linear. So I'm like, first you do this, and first you do this, and first you do this. And I'll try to talk in that way as much as possible. But you know, with software, sometimes you can do this first, and other times you can do that first, and you both get you to the end. So we'll talk about one way of doing it, but it's not always linear. And as I said, there's lots of different ways to do everything. So you can add a new learner this way, or you can add a new learner this way. We'll talk about one way, but just recognize that there are multiple ways of doing things, as with all software. And then probably the most important disclaimer, you can't unintentionally break Northstar. If you have some mad hacking skills, I'm sure you could get in there and do some damage, but you're not going to mess it up by just clicking on the wrong button. Northstar has a lot of features built in where it asks, are you sure you want to do this? And if you do it, and then later you didn't want to do it, you can undo it. And then the Northstar team is very helpful and very compassionate if you do accidentally delete something and want to add it back in. So like all software, the best way is to get in there, use it, and don't be too afraid that you're going to break it. So just a little bit of background on Northstar digital literacy, and I know some of you are well immersed in it, and others of you, this is maybe your first or second exposure. But Northstar's mission is very outcome-based, and that is to help individuals master the skills needed to work, learn, and participate fully in daily life. So it's not digital literacy for digital literacy's sake. It's digital literacy so they can improve their work situation, their life situation. Just like with math, just like with language, it's not the mean, it's not the ends, it's the mean to the ends. Basic part of Northstar are the assessments to measure literacy or digital literacy skills, and then the educational tools to help develop those skills. Just some stats we're really proud of. Okay. We just got to 50 states. We were at 49 for a long, long time. So we're really excited to be at 50. So if you are from Montana, we're very excited to have you here. And 5 countries. And then at last count, 5.59 million assessments have been taken, either on our public site or on the paid site. So big reach, we're very proud of that. So understanding the history of Northstar and the philosophy of Northstar really helps you understand how it works. So it really is a grassroots effort. It started at the request of local library here in St. Paul, Rondo Library, and they were offering digital literacy skills, and they wanted a way to measure how they were doing, and they also wanted a way to give learners credentials for mastering those skills. And so they approached Literacy Minnesota, and working with them, we started the very beginnings of Northstar digital literacy. And we thought it was going to be sort of a St. Paul Library specific thing. And then we thought, it's going to be a Minnesota specific thing. And then we thought maybe it's a US specific thing. And now we are in 5 countries, and I cannot tell you what they are. I apologize for that. It is standards based, and when Northstar creates a new assessment, they work with experts. So when they created the Microsoft assessments, they worked with Microsoft. When they did the Google assessments, they worked with Google, worked with teachers, worked with parents, worked with employers. Okay. Minnesota has created a set of digital literacy standards that we use to dictate the work that we do in adult education. And then we have worked very hard to align Northstar with the CCRS standards. And then another set of standards we use in Minnesota, the ACES TIPS standards. So we're really trying to tie it all together and be standards based. It's accessible, okay? And by that, we mean it's at a lower digital literacy level. There's a lot of stuff out there for higher digital literacy skills. If you want to learn how to program something, there are lots of resources out there. But we found there wasn't a whole lot out there at that lower level. And so that's what Northstar focuses on. And we really wanted to focus it on a lower English level, a lower reading level. That's another accessibility piece. And then we try to keep the fee as low as possible so that as many users can use it as possible. And so the fees that programs pay pays for updates, those minor tweaks that we're talking about. And then we seek outside funding for those big tweaks like translating into other languages, making it mobile compatible, and so forth. So money comes from both what programs pay and then what we can raise elsewhere. So just an overview of the features. The first are the assessments, and these are kind of in chronological order that they were created. The first were the assessments. We have currently 14 assessments that can be used as pre-tests or post-tests for digital literacy skills. We have a 15th assessment in development, which is on telehealth. And people said, well, the assessments are great, but do you have some instructional material? And so the team created the instructor-led curriculum, and there are currently 13 units created for that, only one left. Okay. And so that's curriculum that can be led by teachers, volunteers, in a classroom situation, in a one-on-one situation. Okay. And then people said, well, we don't always have instructors to lead instructions. So could you create some independent resources? And so the Northstar team is working on these self-directed online learning modules, which are modules that learners can go through on their own, sitting at the library, at home. They can also be used as part of a class curriculum. And currently there are 6 units completed there. People ask, what's the next one? The next one is Excel, and that should be available in the next couple months. And I'm really excited because I need to go through an Excel unit myself, not my strongest skill. And then there are lots and lots of reports where you can pull out activity and results. And I just put more is more because as programs use it in different ways, Northstar has been very responsive in putting together reports that can help you slice and dice the data in the way that's important for you to figure out what you need in order to do your job and to tell the story of what you're doing at your program. And today we'll go through all of these features in a little bit more detail. And then just the Northstar model is pre-test, instruction, and then post-test. So the way we envision it happening is that somebody would take one of the assessments as a pre-test and get an idea of what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then they will work on instruction, either under the direction of a teacher or a tutor or working independently. And then once they've had that instruction, then they will post-test. And hopefully they'll see improvement, they'll get a passing score, and then they'll be able to get that Northstar certificate. And so this is the basic model, and we're finding that different programs implement it in different ways. But when we think about Northstar, we're thinking about pre-test, instruction, and post-test. All right. So we're going to get started, and we're going to talk about things that you can do from the admin portal. So everything we talk about today assumes that you have a membership and that you have a site set up through Northstar. And so once you get your site set up through Northstar, Northstar will work with you and designate 2 or 3 administrators. And the administrators are the people who have overall control of how the site works. And then the administrators will pick users, and users are teachers, other staff people, anybody who needs to interact with the assessments, the assessment results, the curriculum, and things like that. And there are 2 categories. One is giving you admin portal access, and then there's an additional credential, which is Proctor, which will allow you to proctor assessments, and Danny will talk about that shortly. Okay. Once you're identified, Northstar will send you an email and have you set up your account, your admin account. Okay, and then you'll have access to the site. If you're going to be a proctor, there's an additional step, and that is to watch a 15-minute training video, take a quiz on it, and then if you pass that, you get access to your proctor credentials. Okay. So today we're assuming people have at least admin portal access and probably proctor access. And if you have questions about that, again, we can talk to you afterwards. All right, so let's talk about getting started, and we'll talk about accessing the admin portal. And I am just going to go to the Northstar site. Make sure we can get there. So I'll go back to the Northstar homepage. So this is the Northstar homepage where everybody will land. And I am going to log in as an admin. So I'm going to click on login up in the upper right-hand corner. I'll enter my credentials, my password, and my email. And this takes me to the magical admin landing page with the tools on the top, and then a couple important pieces of information. The first is your location pin. So every site that gets set up by Northstar will have a unique URL and a unique 4-digit pin. And that is what you'll use at various times to make sure that students are on the right page, test takers are on the right page, and testing information gets logged to your site. So for example, if I click on this is my landing page. Yours will hopefully have a more creative name than demo, but it will have your address. And then when the student scrolls down, they have access to all the assessments. So if you're giving out URLs to students, this is the page you want to give them, your unique site. If you're bookmarking something, the computers in your class or at your library, you'll want to bookmark with this specific site. And then every proctor will get a 6-digit PIN, and that's unique to everybody. And you'll get that when you pass your proctor training, and Danny will talk a little bit more about how that comes into play. Okay. So this is also available when you log in. So up across the top are the tools. The learners is where all the learners who are entered into your learner management system are kept. Assessments, where we keep track of all the assessments that are tied to your site. Reports, one of the places that you can pull out data. Location information is where you set up specifics about your site. And there are a few things where you can change the default setting about how things work. And that'll happen in the location info tab. And then resources is where all the documentation is held. So today we're going to really focus on learners, assessments, and resources. So start with the Learner tab. This gives you all the learners in your program. So when you land here, you'll see a listing of all of the learners who have been enrolled at your site, along with data about them. So the first task is usually getting people entered into the learner management system. And the default way to do this is for you to have to invite them to be part of your program. And that, I think about a classroom where you want to invite a specific set of students to be part of Northstar. If your program is like a library and you want to have people be able to set up their own accounts, so self-enroll, that is something that you can do as well. But the default is to do it manually so that you can control who comes into your program. Okay. So here is the site, and talked about things not being linear. I keep going back and forth about, should I talk about inviting new learners first, or should I talk about managing tags first? And for today, I'll talk about managing tags first. A nice new feature that Northstar has, and this comes from requests from the field, as does most stuff with Northstar. It allows you to tag learners with specific characteristics. So I'll just click on the Manage Tag, and you can see we got tags for zip code, we got tags for beginning ELL class, we have tags for Friday AM class, we have class for specific library, we have tag for specific teachers. Okay. So you can, as a user, set up any tag that you want. And you can do that by just clicking on Create Tag, typing in the name, and you'll have a new tag. Okay. So that's one way that you can sort through the learners in your program, especially if you have large numbers. So, and you can add tags when you invite learners, you can add tags at any point after they're part of the program. So I have a learner that I want to invite to the program. I am going to click on Invite New Learner. Pretty intuitive. And it is going to ask you to add a first name and a last name for the person you are inviting. So we'll make me Rob Aardvark. Oops, Rob Aardvark. Okay. So first name, last name. Okay. And then I'll ask you for an email. And the way Northstar works is you will invite a student to join Northstar. They will get that email invitation. They will open up that email. They will click on it and they will say, yes, I want to join Northstar, and they will set their password. Okay. So it is a great real life digital literacy skill activity to help students dig through their email, find it, set a good password, and so forth. Okay. If you don't want to do that because that's not a battle you want to pick and having them go through email would be too tough, you can set it up with a dummy email. They just have to remember what it is. So I'm going to set up an email here. And as long as it is in traditional email format, meaning at with a name and then a .com or .org or .net, the Northstar system will accept it. Okay. If you have just 2 letters after that, then Northstar is going to give you a little email. Okay. But as long as it looks like email, that'll work. Okay. And then at this point, I can put in tags for students. Just give me a drop-down menu of all the tags that have been created for my site. And I'll just put Monday PM. Okay. And then I am going to invite the learner. Okay. At which point they will get, as I said, that email in their email box, and you'll wait for them to respond. Okay. As you can see with Rob Aardvark, who's nicely alphabetical at the top of the list, you can see the clock still pending, which means that student hasn't responded. So you have some options. One, you can click on the envelope and you can resend that invitation. Sometimes it gets lost. Student comes in, they're sitting down next to me. I'll resend the information and then we'll look through the email together to see if we can find it. Maybe when they're spam or their junk or their clutter or whatever. Opportunity to edit it. And then probably the most useful at this point is the little lightning bolt, and you can manually activate the student's account. So I'm going to click on that. And the big thing here is to establish a password. And again, just like with email, you can view this as a really great opportunity for students to practice setting passwords and remembering passwords, or you can decide not a battle I want to pick. And so you can set the password. Some programs set unique passwords for every student. Some programs use the same password for all of their students. Again, it depends upon how much you want to work on password remembering and all of that. So I set the password. I'm going to update. And now you can see that Rob Aardvark is active, hasn't done anything yet, but they are an active user. So that is the basics for inviting a new learner. If you have a class of 60 students or 30 students or 10 students and you don't want to enter everybody by hand, you can click on this button here that says import. And that'll allow you to upload a spreadsheet, and you can upload first name, last name, and email address. And then that will send out emails to everybody and it will populate, and then you'll just wait for learners to come back or you will activate their accounts. So those of you who have large numbers of people to enter, it might be helpful to do it via the spreadsheet. Back to our slideshow here. I'm sure I covered everything. So we talked about how to create that learner account. This is the email that they will receive, and tried to make it as obvious as possible to click on the big blue button. Details for manually activating the account. You saw what it looks like. And then here is the tip for bulk creation of accounts. And then just a last kind of pro tip, really useful to not only have a admin account or a user account as a teacher or proctor, but also a learner account, because that will give you easier access to Northstar Online. So go ahead and create yourself an account. Okay, you can use the same email for both accounts. That's fine. But if you're in there both as a user and as a teacher and as a learner, you'll be able to move back and forth between the various features. All right, and here is our first break for questions. Thank you for holding off. So if you have a few minutes here, go ahead. If you have questions about setting up a user account, go ahead and chat them out. We'll wait a few minutes. So there's a question about the badges. I'm going to hold that one off until last, because I think that sounds like a very specific question. So remind me to get back to that one. So question, how you add a tag to a user. So if you mean after the fact, so you can go in, and I got Rob. So I can add it when I create the student, but if the student's already there and I decide, oh, I want them, give them a tag, I can click on edit, and up in the right-hand corner is an assign tags button. And so that will give you the drop-down menu, so you can add them later. Do you have to use a different password for both admin and learner accounts? I do not believe you do. Question, if you're uploading from a CVS file, you can't upload tags at that point, so you're going to have to do it after the fact. So this question from Jennifer, when I tag students, how do I look for a particular group of tag students? I'll get to that when we talk about reports, so hold off on that one for a little bit. A question about badging, and badging is sort of like a digital certificate, and they really are only meaningful for people who are connected with a badging system. So I know a lot of colleges have badging systems and so forth. So if you are part of a badging system, then you can upload your badge to that system. Okay. If you're not part of that, then the badge probably isn't that valuable. Do you see everyone's or just your own? You will see all the tags for your particular site. Nope. And Danny, if I've missed any questions, let me know.
Yeah, I can just shout out a couple. Linda was asking, do y'all have a groups or support or sharing portal for various groups? For example, on Schoology, can we join specific groups to share and learn?
At this point, we do not. That is something that's under consideration, but at this point, we don't. There's a question about videos on YouTube. There are videos about how to do everything in Northstar, and I'll share those out when we get to the resources section a little bit later. But if you missed everything I said, that's fine. There are resources available for you.
There's another question about I think this is difference between admins and proctors. Rebecca asks, can admins designate others as proctors or only admins are proctors? It says 2 to 3 per site.
Say that, ask the question again. I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, so can admins designate others as proctors or are admins only proctors? So I think that the question is asking, what's the difference between an admin and a proctor account?
Okay. Admin account gives you control of everything on the site. So you can change how your site is set up. You can change the defaults, the address, and so forth. And admins are the people who can invite proctors and users. Proctors and users aren't able to invite other proctors and users. All right, I'm going to go ahead and shift presenters here. And so Danny, can go ahead and share your screen. If we missed your question, please ask it again when we get to the next question part, or you can go ahead and send me a private chat.
All right, thank you, Rob. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I did see that someone sent me a private message. If you want to send that same message to Rob, he can answer that more quickly than I can.
The last question was, can site admins invite other site admins? Nope, site admins get invited through Northstar. So you need to let the Northstar team, who should be a site admin, and then Northstar will set that up.
Okay, thank you. Give me just a second to get my screen shared. Okay, can everybody see the screen that says assessments on it?
We're good.
Okay, and I'm just gonna switch the display settings quickly. All right, is that full screen, Rob?
That is full screen.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so I'm going to pick it up where Rob left off while talking about the assessments. The assessments were created to be broken into these 3 sections that you see on the screen here. We've got essential computer skills, essential software skills, and using technology in daily life skills. So these assessments can be taken in any order. Just because they're broken into chunks doesn't mean that you need to necessarily take them all together or teach all of these skills together. That being said, I would throw in a caveat of if you're an instructor, just to know that the skills do build on each other throughout the individual lessons. So you're not going to want to jump from lesson 1 in basic computer skills to lesson 8. Just make sure you teach everything consecutively so that the skills can be built lesson by lesson. If you did want to give someone sort of a basic rundown of this is a computer, this is how it works, welcome to Digital Literacy 101, I would recommend teaching these first 3 essential computer skills: basic computers, internet basics, and using email. This covers a lot of ground that will be covered in all of the other lessons, or at least will be assumed that the learner will know in some of the others. Last point about the assessments, these using technology and daily life skills, these are really geared towards learners who either might have higher digital literacy skills, so maybe have already gone through these first 2 sets, or who, I shouldn't say or, and who might have higher English language skills in order to understand the content specific vocabulary associated with this last category. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. All right. So there are a variety of ways to use the assessments. You can use an assessment as a pretest or a post-test. And a pretest is when you are assessing instructional needs in order to provide relevant skills instruction to program participants. The difference between a pretest and a post-test is that a post-test is what you take after you may have learned some of the material right? It's not kind of like a cold quiz. A post test allows a learner to demonstrate skill mastery and also to certify their achievements. So we don't currently have a separate pre-test and post-test. You can give the same test as a pre-test and a post-test. It works just fine. The model, like Rob said, that Northstar wrote the assessments to connect with is an assess, instruct, assess model. And the reason that that is a helpful way to go about interacting with the Northstar content is that the assessments and the curriculum are really aligned to the same standards. So of course, the Northstar Online Learning and Northstar Digital Literacy standards, but also the CCRS standards and the TIF standards. So all of those are lumped together and will give the learner a bigger picture if you instruct in the middle of doing a pre-test and a post-test. And as Rob mentioned, it can be really helpful to create a learner account if you are a staff member at your location. I will say that some of the modules I'm more familiar with than others. And so if you are thinking about how to teach a class to learners who are learning about internet safety, it might be worth going through the assessment and the lessons for that module in order to prepare yourself. So I want to dive a little deeper into how one would take an assessment. There are actually quite a few different ways. Northstar has made it very easy to address the need that you want to address with assessments. So there are 4 ways for a learner to take an assessment. The first way is, actually there are 3 that I lumped together because learners can take an assessment on their own a couple of different ways. So the first way, and I'll just name it and then I'll walk you through it, is by taking an assessment anonymously through the Northstar public website. So I'm going to go ahead and share how one would do that. So here we are, and Rob, are we seeing the Northstar homepage on the screen? Just want to make sure.
We are not. We're seeing your PowerPoint.
Okay. There we go. That should have fixed it.
There we go.
All right. So here we are on the Northstar homepage. And you'll see that there's a login button. We're not going to go there yet. We are just going to look for the assessments. So Northstar has provided free access to all of the assessments through their homepage. And I, as a test taker, can go ahead and just choose one. I can open it up and you'll see that up in the corner here, it says public version. So a pro is that it's very easy to access and anybody can take any of the assessments at any time. A con might be that you as the test taker won't be able to access these test results because you're not accessing them through, or you're not taking the assessment through your learner portal. This is really meant to be for people who just want to see their test results and maybe, print or download their results page. They're not interested in necessarily getting a certificate. The second way of taking an assessment is to we're still on this Northstar homepage, but if I, as the test taker, want to associate my assessment with the site that I'm taking, or the Northstar subscribing site where I maybe take lessons or get tutoring, I can go ahead and enter that 4-digit PIN right above this assessment location. So we're going to use the 4-digit location PIN for the demo school that we use for trainings. And I'm going to click go. So you'll see that we we have arrived at this landing page for our specific site. And down at the bottom here, I can go ahead and say, I'm going to type in my name. And from there, I'm going to continue and open an assessment. And you'll see in the top, at the top here that because I entered my name, I'm putting it out there that I took this assessment at this location. However, this isn't going to save to my account. I just put a name in. So this could be me, or this could be, as a downside, this could be someone who puts a name in and isn't necessarily that person. But if I want to take an assessment and show that it's at this location under my name, I can do that. You'll see it's not proctored, so the learner can't get a certificate this way either. There is one last way that a learner can take an assessment on their own. And that is once they arrive at this demo page, they can go ahead and I see that I am logged in here. So I'm just going to quickly come back to this page. So the learner will put their location pin in. And they will come to this spot on the demo site landing page or your school's landing page, and they will click login now. So this will prompt them to log in. And once they do so, they might be prompted to answer a data question. So where are you? Are you at the school? No, I'm currently somewhere else. So once I have logged in, I will land on this Northstar Online Learning account, and I can click Take Assessments. So now I'm logged in. So any assessment that I take here will be saved under my name in my account. Through my locations subscribing site. So you can see that if I click here and open an assessment, it should be proctored. So I did something wrong, but when you open it up, it will say your name and at demo, and it will say proctored up in the corner. Or I'm sorry, it will not say proctored up in the corner. Instead, it will say not proctored because I am taking this assessment through my account on my own. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. We're about to talk about proctoring, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what that means. But I'm going to go ahead and go back to our presentation. So I wanted to mention that besides the 3 ways that the learners can take an assessment on their own, there is one last way. And as you heard me say, that is by having the assessment proctored. So the reasons for proctoring the assessments are many, but in general, what a proctored assessment is an assessment taken under observation. So by a staff person, someone at your location, in order to ensure the test's validity. And the reason that you would proctor an assessment is to maintain the legitimacy of the assessment. On the learner's end, the reason why they might want to take a proctored assessment is to earn a certificate that they can then take to a job interview or to school, and to show that they are in possession of the digital literacy skills necessary to join a higher level class, for example. There are 2 types of proctored assessments. You can proctor an assessment in person, and you can proctor an assessment remotely. And I want to say that for proctored assessments, regardless of what format you're in, you can test either an individual student or multiple students at the same time. In any of those cases, the steps are the same to get a proctored assessment going. First, you need to prepare the test taker. So this means giving the test taker all of the information that they need in order to feel comfortable in their environment while testing, all of the rules for taking an assessment in a proctored way, and answering any questions that they have beforehand. You'll also have to tell the software to consider the assessment proctored. And so that's something that we'll take a look at in just a moment. Finally, you as the proctor need to be there to monitor the session for the entire time. And we'll talk about what that looks like too. So if you are proctoring an assessment in person, there are a few things that you need to remember. First of all, the test taker must use a computer, laptop, or Chromebook. Currently, Northstar is working on making our platform mobile friendly. So in the future, you'll be able to possibly do things like test on a phone or a tablet. But right now, it's just not set up for that. So make sure that your learner is well equipped in order to take the assessment and be able to move through the whole thing. Second, if you are doing a group testing session, headphones are highly recommended. Even sometimes just doing a test where there's one individual, the learner or the participant they can read the questions, but they can also listen to them. So if you have a learner who prefers listening to the questions, headphones might make it easier for them to get the information. Next, the first time that a test taker comes to take an assessment in a proctored setting, they will have to show their ID to show that they are who they say they are. And you might have to help a learner log in or give them the steps to arrive at your site's testing location landing page the first couple of times that they take an assessment so that they get it down. After that, they'll be able to do it pretty routinely. Next, you'll share the Northstar Testing Code of Conduct page with test takers. And lastly, you'll activate the proctoring session. So I want to back up and talk about the Northstar Testing Code of Conduct. And in order to do that, we're going to jump back to the internet. So here we go. The Northstar Code of Conduct is a way to make sure that everyone is on the same page, both test takers and proctors, and so that everyone can have hopefully a solid experience with the same assessment. So you can see here that there is a code of conduct both for the test taker and for the proctor. You can either, if you're doing an assessment in person, you can print these out and give these to the learner so that they can take them home and maybe review them before the next assessment, or you can project them on a classroom projector so that the learner can see them and read them and let you know if they have any questions. And the last thing that I mentioned was you have to activate the proctor session. So we're going to do that, but I have one other piece of information to share first. So just know I haven't skipped this step. We're coming back to it in just a moment. So for a proctoring session that is remote, it looks pretty similar. There are just a few differences from giving an assessment in person. Again, the learner has to have the proper hardware in order to take the assessment. Something vital for remote proctoring is that a video chat program with a camera and the ability to chat are necessary. So having the learner join through Google Meets or Zoom and be able to turn on their camera and chat with you are both ways that you can see and communicate with the learner. The The reason that you need video especially is because as a proctor, your responsibility is to make sure that the learner is focused on the assessment the entire time. And in order to do that, you need to be able to observe their environment and see that there aren't any distractions, that the learner is either getting information from or things that are taking them away from the assessment that might invalidate it. You'll need to check their ID again if it's the first time they're testing, help them log in, share the testing code of conduct with the learners, and then again, activate the proctoring session. So I want to say also that it's very important to make sure that when a learner is taking an assessment, that there are no notes, electronic devices, or my personal favorite, other people helping. I've had many parents take an assessment where the kid walks by and gets very excited because they know the answer and they want to help mom or dad. But just telling them in advance that these are the rules for the test and it's a time for them to show what they know can help mentally prepare them for that. If you are working with a group of learners at the same time, I personally would recommend telling them to start at the same time, and you have the ability to let people into a proctored session one by one. What I do is I just let everybody in at the same time so that everyone gets off to the same start, and we make sure that all questions are answered before anybody starts. Lastly, once a proctored session is finished and everybody has completed their assessment, you as the proctor should end the proctoring session when you're no longer available. And again, this is just to make sure that you're maintaining the legitimacy of the assessment by observing anyone who's testing. So I'm going to show you a quick example of how to set up a proctored assessment, and just going to stop sharing for a second so I can reset my login information here. All right, so there are two ways to, or I guess there are two ways to think about how to set up a proctored assessment. You can first help a learner get into the proctored assessment, and then you can open it up, or you can first open a proctored assessment session and then let learners in as they come. So I'm going to show you the second way. I, as the proctor, am going to log into my Northstar account. And if you're associated with more than one testing location, you're going to have to choose which one you want the test to be associated with that your learners are about to take. You can see now that I'm logged in, I've got the ability to click on the assessments button on the ribbon up top here. And then under proctoring, I'm going to click Start New Proctor Session.
We're still seeing your login page.
Oh, sorry about that. All right, let me go back a couple of steps. All right, so we'll just go back and log in again. Sorry about that, everybody. So once you decide that you're about to take an assessment, like I said, you're going to help someone get into their account, but first you need to set up the assessment itself. So you're going to log in. Choose the testing location that you want the assessment associated with, and then come up to the assessments button at the top here. And underneath this proctoring section, you're going to click Start Proctoring Session. And if you forget to turn it off, it will say View Current Proctoring Session, but this is what it will say in the meantime. So Start New Proctoring Session. Once you see that, you will be able to see any users that join your Proctor session. And if I, as a learner, then log into my account and click Take an Assessment, I come to this landing page again, and I see I'm logged in. And so now I will just click Join Proctor Mode, and it will say Waiting for Proctor Response. As you can see on this other screen where I am the proctor, I can see that I have a user, a test taker, who is asking permission to enter into the proctoring session. So the learner's status is pending, and I can admit or deny them. So I'm going to click, once I've gone through all of the steps to prepare learners, everybody who has joined a proctoring session and answered any questions, I'm going to click Start Proctoring. So the status changes to active, and I can follow along. The module that they are testing on will appear under In Progress, and when they finish it, it will appear under Assessments Completed. Once I'm finished with this proctoring session, I can, as learners finish, I can stop proctoring them one by one. And it's going to ask, are you sure? Yes. And then I can, at the end, I can end the proctoring or end proctor mode so that nobody else can come in and take an assessment. Proctoring is finished. So all right. There we go. At the end of an assessment that is proctored, a learner will be able to see their results page. So here I've got an example. It will say either you passed or you didn't pass. 85% is necessary to pass a Northstar assessment. Underneath this number, you'll see the skills that you've mastered as a test taker and the skills to improve. So I can click a practice button next to any of these skills, and it will take me directly to Northstar Online Learning so that I can study that specific skill. So this is a reason for doing proctored assessments, is that your learner has direct access after an assessment to the skills that they need to practice, and they can go straight into their account to where they can get more information on that skill area. This is a certificate. Usually we like to print them on fancy paper, but you'll see that it has all of the markings of a good certificate. It's got the tester's name, the module that they completed, the date, and a place for the proctor to sign the certificate. The last thing that I want to say about assessments is that just as there are many good reasons to assess a learner, there are also good reasons not to assess a learner. So, for example, if you have a learner whose English language level is very low, so for example, someone at an NRS level of below about 4, I'm considering that below an intermediate level of language, then the assessment might not be assessing their digital literacy skills. It might just be assessing how well they can read the question. Alternatively, if you have someone whose digital literacy skills are very low, maybe this is the first time that they've worked with a computer, then you might want to start them off with tutoring or some other form of one-on-one practice to help them build the vocabulary of digital literacy before you start diving into how to do digital literacy skills. Fortunately, Northstar is prepared for both contingencies, and they have a screener that will allow you to be able to assess whether a learner is ready to start learning. So a screener is a paper form that a learner can take a look at and read the question of, and fill out on their own. Oops, sorry about that. And then the person who is on site can take a look at it and see if they're ready for digital literacy skills. So there are a variety of remote proctoring documents that we're going to dive into next. There are lots of resources in the admin portal. First, we're just going to take a couple of questions. If you've had any in the chat and you want to ask them now, you can go ahead.
Rick had a question about where is the screener, and it's on the resources tab under other resources.
I see, please give context for the NRS levels. So when I say NRS level, I'm talking about a specific reading level for learners in English. So if I am at an NRS level 4, which is what Northstar is written for, 4 or above, I am considered an intermediate level English language reader, and therefore able to interact with Northstar on the level that it was created for. All right, Marcus, I see your question in the chat. I would connect with your site first to make sure that there isn't something that an admin can help you with. If the issue continues, then please write a note to Northstar, and one of our teammates will be able to help you solve the problem. Approximately how long does each assessment take? About 15 minutes on average. Individual test takers will take longer or shorter than that. Patty's asking, can I change a test to proctored after the fact? Yes, you can. And I think at the end, if Rob doesn't show us how to do that in the next section, we can show you at the end, Patty. Are the assessments offered in Spanish? If not, when will this be available? The assessments are only offered in English so far, but we are working on translating them into a variety of other languages. Spanish will be the first. And Rob, I don't actually know the timeline for that. I just know that they're working hard on it.
I heard like early summer, so May, and the plan was to release it as things get created, so not wait until the entire system is converted to Spanish, but excuse me, do it as in each individual component is shifted over.
How long do the training components take? Kate, I'm assuming you're talking about the proctor training, and that's about 15 minutes. Elizabeth, the certificate will be sent to the learner directly. No, the proctor will have the ability to give the certificate to the learner. The learner can download and print a certificate from their computer, but it's better if the proctor prints and then gives the certificate to the learner, because you can sign it and therefore certify the assessment.
Oh, she was referring to the Northstar Online components.
Oh, okay. Sorry, thank you for clarifying. Each Northstar Online Learning module takes about, on average, 90 minutes to complete. And do you have to get all basic computer skills to receive our certificate? No, you do not. You can complete an individual assessment and get a certificate. You can also complete all of the assessments and get one certificate for each assessment, or you can complete a variety of assessments and then have them combined into one certificate that lists all of the digital literacy skills that you are in possession of. Do we need to be signed up as a student in order to complete the lessons as a proctor? You do need a learner account in order to complete the Northstar Online Learning lessons. So go ahead and have an admin at your site, if you're not one, set up a learner account for you.
We're going to go on. Again, you can keep chatting out the questions either in the group chat or privately to Danny. But we're going to talk about the report functions that are available. And then we'll also talk about the educational resources available. And then we'll talk about the support resources available. So lots of different ways of pulling information out of Northstar. And have on the screen a bunch of them listed. So this is, depending on what you're doing, you might be finding information about a particular learner and a particular learner's assessment. You may be looking at what is my class doing. You may be looking at what is everybody who's come into our program doing. And so lots of different ways to pull out lots of different information. So let's go through those. I'm gonna go to the site. And we'll start with stuff you can find on the Learners tab. So here we were earlier when we were inviting new learners, but this gives you just a visual snapshot of what people have done. So let's look at Rob as student. So here I am. You can see all of the icons for the different assessments. And then if the assessment is outlined, but it's black and white, that says that they passed the assessment, but it was unproctored. So they did it without somebody watching them. They did it at home, whatever. So it's proctored. It was passed, but it was unproctored. If it's outlined and it's in color, that tells you that it was passed and somebody proctored it and they are eligible for a certificate. And then if the icon is grayed out, it either means they didn't take the attempt or didn't take it, so no attempts, or they took it and they didn't get a passing score. And if you scroll over, it will list what the the last assessment score was. Okay, so I can just go through and look by students. Here's a great place to apply my tags. I can decide I am going to look to see who in the Friday AM class, what have they been up to? And so now I just have it limited to that class. Okay. I can click on any of the assessments and figure out what is happening with everyone in this case, my Friday AM class. So I can just visually look through and see what people have been doing. So if I assigned everybody, I want you to take a practice test, I can look and see how they did. Again, filtering using tags comes in really handy, so you're not looking at everybody. And then I can dig in deeper to a student. So I just want to find out what has Rob as student been up to. So if I click on the particular student, same information in slightly different format, all the assessments listed. You can see what the best score was, earned a badge, all that stuff. And then if I click on a particular assessment, I can look to see, and this is the results from the last time the assessment was taken. I just want to point out assessment results are shared not by question right or wrong, but by standard met or not met. And so sometimes people are confused by that. So this says not that I got question 1 wrong, but that I missed that first standard, which was distinguished between different types of devices. And then I can scroll down and here's a complete history. So Rob as student has taken this assessment a lot. I can go back and look at any of those assessments. So this is the advantage of getting a learner account. The information gets saved to them and you can go back and look at their particular history. I can also download activity in a rather messy spreadsheet, but I can filter the results or do the entire program and download, and it will give me a spreadsheet that has that information. So that might be useful for your purposes. The other thing I can do is go to the Assessments tab. And now that's going to show me over here. We looked at the proctoring details. Now I'm going to look at assessment results. I'll click on View All Results. And this tells me all the assessments that were taken in chronological order. So I can go back and I can look at what people have done. And I'm going to look at this assessment. So again, I can look at every assessment and get an idea of what's going on. There was a question about can I make a non-proctored assessment proctored after the fact? And yes, so here is an assessment that was taken unproctored, and Isaac got 100%. Good for him. So he is eligible for a proctor certificate. Over here it's edit. If I click on edit, okay, and only do this if you have truly proctored the assessment. And usually it happens where I forget to turn on the proctor feature, and afterward I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot to do that. But now I can go back and fix that. But if you didn't proctor it, you don't want to go back and count it proctored. And again, I can filter these out, so I can just see by a particular student. I can do by a particular class or tag, or I can just limit which assessments I see. So I could unclick all of them except basic computer skills and see who in my program has taken the basic computer skills. And you can also download a messy spreadsheet here with that data. And then the third place you can get report data is under the Reports tab. And this really gives some high-level programmatic kind of information, which is good for program planning or good for classroom instruction. So I can do a summary report, and that will let me look at which assessments have been taken at my site. Okay. I know a lot of programs are like, well, what are the most common assessments, so that I can offer classes that match up to those assessments. And again, you can filter the results by tag or by date. And over here, the detailed reports, this is really good for instruction. So I can look at the basic computer skills assessment. Okay. And I can look to see which questions people got right and which questions people got incorrect. And that might help me guide my instruction. So I focus really heavily on the questions that most people were struggling with. So I can filter it to my class, and then I can take that data and not have to go student by student by student. So just lots of different ways that you can pull out the data from Northstar. If you have something that you would need or like, and you can't figure out a way to do it, I would encourage you to contact Northstar and say, hey, I'm looking for a report that will do this, and the Northstar team can help you. There's a question, does the learner always need the location pin? They either need to type in the location pin from the general Northstar site, or if you give them that site-specific URL and they launch the assessment from that site, then the assessment will be tied to your site. So it's probably easiest to make sure that they have that site bookmarked so that they can get that assessment credited to your site. Okay. All right. We have a short period of time. I'm gonna talk about the instructional resources that are available for you. And you know, created the assessments, and then people said, well, it'd be really great if we had some tools that we could use to teach these skills. And so Northstar has created the instructor-led curriculum, and there are currently 13 of the 14 units created. You can see them listed on the website or on the screen. And people ask what the English language literacy level is, language level is. Here are some indicators which may make sense in your particular world. Okay. Obviously, you can't make it level 0. Okay, so it is written at a more intermediate level. Instructors have scaffolded down, tutors have scaffolded it down to make it more accessible. But compared to a lot of the digital literacy stuff that's out there, it is at a pretty basic level. This question, what's the difference between legacy and new modules? As I said earlier, software changes. So we had Windows 7 when we started, and now we have Windows 10. And so the assessment got changed substantially. So the legacy modules are ones that are tied to the old technology, way back from 8 years ago. All right, so I'm gonna just quickly go to the curriculum. And you can access it at the admin portal. If you go to the resources tab, you'll see all of the Northstar resources. And in the right-hand column is view Northstar curriculum. Even though the content is different, obviously, for each of the units, the lesson format and the routine is very similar. So that is comforting for both teachers and students. Some general guides for using it. And then I'll just click on basic computer skills as an example. So each unit has 8 or 9 lessons. There's a scope and sequence for the entire set of lessons. The alignments towards the ACES and the TIF standards. And then there is a unit skills project for programs that are skills-based. You can do this to gain that credit. And then I'll just click on one of the units. Here is what it looks like. Tell you what the standards are being worked on. The lessons are very heavy on the vocabulary since we have a lot of English language learners. So there'll be a lot of emphasis on teaching that computer vocabulary. And there are more than one times that I've I didn't know that was called that. So it's good to go over that official vocabulary. And then here are the lessons. Starts out with a warm-up, which is a chance to get them thinking about the particular skills and a chance to do a little mini assessment of their prior skills. Overview of the objectives. And then we do a lot of, it's based on direct instruction or IWU or explicit instruction. So the teacher will model and explain the concept. There'll be an opportunity for students to practice together with the teacher, and then there'll be a chance for independent practice. So you can see everything is laid out. It's actually scripted out. And I don't want to say that you can pick up a lesson and just walk in and do it. That is bad teaching, but you can take this stuff, spend 10, 15 minutes preparing, and you can go in and lead a very strong lesson. It really is designed for group instruction. So I found that if you're working one-on-one, you may need to adapt the activities to be suitable for one-on-one. This is the instructor-led curriculum. I also wanted to point out the Northstar Online units. We're calling them self-directed online learning modules. And these are modules that learners can go through on their own or with instructors to develop the skills that are covered in the assessments. Okay? So I know a lot of programs like libraries that don't have instructors like having learners work their way through. And you can access these through the learner portal. Just quickly go there. I'm gonna log out. I'm gonna log in as a student. And here is where the learner could access the the online learning units. All right, and one last thing to talk to you today, and that is just to revisit the resources. And actually, I'm just going to stay on the Northstar page. Go back to my admin account. Go to resources, which we just looked at. There is a very nice manual, everything you need to know about Northstar in manual format. All hyperlinked. This is really useful. It does print out nicely. There are videos in which don't work when you print it out, but it is good to print it out. I keep it in a 3-ring binder next to my desk. Some frequently asked questions and the answers to those frequently asked questions. Quick start guide, video tutorials. So they just pulled out the most valuable part of the manual and put them in one place. The information on proctoring assessments. Other resources, but you can find Proctor stuff, updated standards, those screeners that we talked about. The curriculum that we mentioned. And then if you are still struggling and still not finding the answer to your question, or if you find a glitch in the system, or if there's something that you would like to request Northstar consider doing, I encourage you to click on Create a Support Ticket. And they will kindly ask you to do your due diligence because Northstar is a very small team. So if you still need help, click on I still need help. And you can send a title. You can indicate what type of question you have. And so Marcus's comment about the things not lighting up, that might be something that you could submit. And then you can send it in. The Northstar team will look at it, and then they'll decide which person is the best person to respond. And they'll get back to you within a day or two. Okay. All right. So with that, we are going to go to the final questions page. And this is your chance to chat out. Can Northstar be used with Chromebooks? Yes, that is they work well. It works well on Chromebooks. So I'm going to go ahead and put up our contact information. So we encourage you to contact us as well as contacting Northstar. At this point, we're going to wrap things up and go ahead and if people have questions, go ahead and chat them out in the chat box, or if you'd rather unmute, you can do that as well. I am actually going to stop the recording at this point.